Hey gang, I'm gonna keep this short mainly because I'm not super well right now, but thanks to the wonders of ibuprofen, I've probably got 12-ish minutes of speech in me. So grab a seat, sit down, and let me tell you that Star Wars is not, in fact, creatively bankrupt, despite what some are claiming. See, I only saw it the other day, hence why this video is coming out now, but there's a YouTube short that's gone pretty viral over the past month called Disney Star Wars is Creatively Bankrupt. Ahsoka Episode 1 rips off Rogue One. Here's a snippet. The short's by a smaller channel, and normally I try not to respond to or criticize stuff from channels smaller than mine, even ones playing for the cheap seats with the whole anti-woke spiel, but this short's got over 500,000 views, and it's clearly made an impact on the fandom. The comments, thumbed up by the thousands, pledged their allegiance. Bro thinks he's Darth Vader, copying your own homework for the third time now, watered down whiskey. So while I think we do need to talk about this, we're going to focus solely on the short, and not on the channel behind it. And please, even if you agree by the end that it represents a silly and unhelpful way of engaging with Star Wars, don't brigade that channel and be nasty in the comments. It's not worth your time, and you'll be doing more harm than good. We're just going to take the idea the short's presenting and spin that off into a deeper, fairer, and I think more accurate look at the sequence in question, and by extension, Star Wars today. The short isn't entirely off base. This is obviously drawing on that Vader sequence at the end of Rogue One. The mistake here is in the framing. I would strongly argue that this isn't a rip-off, as the title claims, but a visual homage, that there's a distinction worth making here, and that when you pay attention, the nature of Ahsoka's reception of the Vader sequence, is just as obvious as the basic fact that thing looks like other thing. So, let me do that. Red saber and force-wielding warrior slices up the rebel-outfitted crew in a long hallway, broken up by visually similar bulkheads. It isn't close, they don't stand a chance. Yes, just like Vader in Rogue One, a quick and functional comparison to establish Baylan's power, his brutality, and his role as antagonist. If that were it, I'd maybe have some quibbles with that rip-off label, especially given Star Wars' wider self-referentiality, but I could totally see why people are taking this as a lazy shortcut. Fine, make your short. But that isn't it. Let's think back to that sequence being ripped off. Rogue One revolved around a crew of then unknown characters, pulling off a previously off-screen caper that the first Star Wars film had briefly mentioned. At first, before the film's release, it didn't seem awfully connected to that central story audiences cared most about. This ending, though, is the film making that connection explicit, tying itself into the heart of the saga. That's cool thematically, it really drives home that everyone has an impact, anti-aristocratic Star Wars from below angle Rogue One sets up, which we've read and or through before on this channel, link below, but it's also cool from a franchise connectivity perspective. As time went on, as prequels, sequels, animated shows iterated upon Lucas's original templates, as power creep and ever more elaborate FX and choreography became the norm, the original trilogy, and particularly A New Hope, began to look stiff and simple. The comparatively weak and brittle lightsaber battle and force use scenes which so dazzled viewers in 1977 didn't seem to fit into the world they'd inspired, and so one of the things this sequence is doing is bridging that gap a little. This is the Vader of A New Hope, mere minutes before he stormed that bridge by walking stiffly onto it, and he's carving people up. Not in the over-fluid way prequel characters had fought, not with the simple swings he'd go on to exchange with Ben on the Death Star, but somewhere in between. Rogue One is sort of restaging that storming, that first ever scene, with the pizzazz of a modern production. The Vader sequence isn't necessary, narratively speaking. It doesn't change what's already happening. The rebels are getting away with the plans. The point of this sequence is to function as connective tissue, to be both the end of this film and the start of the OT. This is 1977 Star Wars just before the curtain rises. So by referencing this closing moment from Rogue One, the opening of the original trilogy is implicitly invoked too, and I will say that I think Ahsoka is encouraging us to make that link. Look at the setting of Baylan's slaughter, the pure white walls. Yes, there are bulkheads, but there's also a distinctively Tantive 4-like paneling. Baylan isn't simply Rogue One Vader, he's Rogue One Vader placed in A New Hope. Okay, cool, pillar of garbage, I see you typing down there. Fine, that doesn't really change much. If it was a ripoff before, it's still a ripoff now, just a slightly more complex one. And yeah, if this were it, I wouldn't have bothered making the video. Maybe I'd still disagree it was a ripoff, I think that was a very simple and dismissive way of describing the above dynamic, but I wouldn't think it was a move interesting enough to defend. But this isn't it either, because this isn't quite the start of the episode, is it?
The ship has entered this sector.
I'm receiving their signal now, sir. They're Jedi.
Signal them to come aboard. I want to meet these Jedi.
Thank you for allowing us to come on board, Captain.
Hail.
This is how we get to that hallway fight. And doesn't that remind you of something else?
Captain,
Yes, sir.
tell them we wish to board at once.
The ambassadors for the Supreme Chancellor wish to board immediately.
Yes, of course.
I'm TC-14 at your service.
I have a bad feeling about this.
A Jedi figure and their student hail a larger ship of a local authority. Through disguise, they're able to board, but they have a secret mission, and so before long, lightsabers are drawn and things get violent. Am I describing the start of Ahsoka, or of Episode 1? Well, both. And that's not by accident. Ahsoka's opening doesn't just place Baylan as a Vader figure, it creates him as a Qui-Gon too. Doesn't just create him as Sith, but as Jedi too. In fact, it does that first. We open echoing Episode 1, retreading the negotiation sequence that's frankly burned into my skull from hours of PS2 LEGO stud farming, only for Ahsoka to pull the rug from under us, flip the script, and have this created Jedi figure become that Vader stand-in also. And I do mean also. It isn't just a twist, a reversal of expectations. The sequence doesn't start as a Phantom Menace homage only to reveal it's always been New Hoping, it's both. He's both. The lines are blurred, and again, that's not accidental. That is the point. Spoilers for the Ahsoka finale coming up, go see that first, but throughout this season, the show consciously avoids putting Baylan in boxes. He's got a red saber, but he's not Darth Baylan, he's just a figure, using his Jedi training to follow his own path, train his own apprentice, an apprentice who seems to think she's a Jedi.
Comes from a breed of Balkan Jedi trained in the wild after the temple fell.
Like me.
No.
Baylan is something else then, something between, something blurred. Over these 8 episodes, a lot of Baylan's lines make this clear.
To kill her would be a shame. There are so few Jedi left.
Do you miss it? The Order.
I miss the idea of it. Take your place in the coming Empire.
You won't help?
Your ambition drives you in one direction. My path lies in another.
But here's where things get tricky. Baylan doesn't play much of a role in the finale, but his story isn't over. Or rather, it wasn't. Ray Stevenson tragically passed away after the series wrapped filming. Going from the way his story did or didn't end in episode 8, it does seem clear that this wasn't intended to be the last time we saw Baylan Skoll. But of course, it will be. It's hard. These Disney Plus shows, Star Wars or no, do often offer intriguing ideas, and then kinda leave them there, as little more than ideas. It's possible this would have happened to Baylan, that the franchise's future wouldn't have included any real further developments for him, so we can't really praise the incompletion we got here as the start of a glorious journey that's now never to be realized, but equally, it is a great introduction to a character we just can't see again. And the start of that greatness is the way that opening sequence frames Baylan as a sort of symbolic trespasser. Baylan is Vader, but he's also Qui-Gon, says Ahsoka, and maybe he's also Luke. These are all figures that in one way or another pushed beyond Star Wars' orthodox binaries, in a way Baylan was starting to also.
It is an unfortunate evil, but speaks to a greater truth. One must destroy in order to create.
So while we can't judge how successful a character, how successful a complication of those binaries Baylan could have proved in another world where Stevenson survived, we can judge what we have here, which is an intriguing but incomplete whole, with a very inventive introduction. That's all well and good you pointing out now, pillar of garbage, you might say, but you've got the benefit of hindsight. How were we supposed to know back when the show started airing that this sequence was a pointed blurring of references, deliberately smashing together these sequences? If this was meant to scan this way from minute 1, shouldn't Ahsoka Episode 1 have set up this idea of Baylan as a sort of liminally aligned villain? Why, yes, my dear rhetorical construct, it should have. It did. That's what this is. This is the start of that setup. A setup that would be built on, but which began here. That Phantom Menace interpolation and its following complication was one of the first things I noticed about this intro sequence, and I'm willing to bet a considerable amount that I was not alone here, so please do drop a comment down below if you picked up on this too. Look, I'm certainly not madly in love with the Ahsoka show. I have had some problems with it, some of which we got into in that last video, link to that should be on screen now. Personally, I think Star Wars' Disney Plus project could do with a few changes, but to suggest that it's creatively bankrupt is to peddle in the sort of inflammatory hyperbole that's helped make Star Wars fan spaces so unpleasant to be in these days. And to suggest it's creatively bankrupt because of this sequence is simply to reveal you've not paid enough attention to the stuff you're criticizing or to the stuff you're unfavorably comparing it to. You think Star Wars fell off? Fine, make that argument, but maybe do it properly, because this very clearly ain't it. Alright, that's that. Now I'm going to stop talking for an indefinite amount of time, but if you want to watch more of my videos in the meantime, Patreon plug, sign up, watch the back catalogue of exclusives, crowdfund me some sick days, and all that. Same goes for YouTube memberships. You can get the exclusives through that as well. But thanks for watching, and big thanks to all my channel supporters on screen now, especially Daniel Goldhorn, Karen Kuhlman, Magath, Ryan Emily, Something Capitalism Bad, Thomas R, and Weirdy Beardy. Cheers.